Kia ora koutou katoa and welcome to today's webinar. Our speaker today is Ben Chiriboga. Ben was a senior associate in a US law firm, but now he's the head of growth of Nexl, an Australian-based legal tech company with offices in the US. Ben has a special interest in legal tech. Today's topic is tips and tricks for transactional lawyers. I'll now hand over to Ben. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you so very much. It's very nice to be with everybody again today. It's been about a month since our previous engagement where I went over some tips and tricks for litigators, and I'm very excited today to speak to everybody about some tips and tricks for transactional lawyers. So let's go ahead and get started. I think just two housekeeping. I believe if you have some questions, please go ahead and put them in the chat. I'll do my best to answer them at the end. And if you have any questions specifically or any terms that you'd like for me to clarify, of course, I'd love to clarify them. And at the end, I'll put my contact information if anybody has any questions specifically. So I'll go ahead and get started. Now, let me go ahead and share my screen, and hopefully everybody can see this. I believe it can. Nitesh, can you see my screen?
Yes, I can see it, yes.
Okay, beautiful. Okay, so welcome everybody. Again, excited to kick off this morning. I'm here in Chicago, Illinois, in the United States, where it is 6:02 p.m., but a very beautiful early summer day. So today we're going to be talking about legal tech for transactional lawyers, some tips and tricks to help your transactional practice. We're going to go over some categories of contracting tools, some categories of drafting tools, and then some back-end tools that really help you manage your contracts as well, really covering the entire life cycle for transactional lawyers specifically. These categories are all designed to really do three main things. The first is to increase your drafting accuracy. The second is to reduce time searching for documents, really that switching costs in between, and they can be very voluminous in certain transactions, of course. And then the third is creating a more holistic transactional client experience. Today, especially within transactions, clients of all sizes really want to have a closer consumer-like experience whenever it comes to their transaction lawyers. So these tips and tricks and these tools will really help you deliver what might be a more modern, a more updated, and a more holistic transactional experience. So let's go ahead and get started. And like all presentations, I will start with a story to just lay the groundwork a little bit about myself. In 2005, I was a senior associate at a law firm here in the United States. And during that time, I was trying, the firm was trying, and of course I was in the middle dealing with a very large litigation case against a pharmaceutical company. The firm that I was at was a small size firm, about 45 attorneys. And during that time, we were going against a very large corporate in-house team with very, very large lawyers and very deep pockets. At that time, I was really underneath a lot of discovery. And to be very frank, we were losing the case because the evidence and the discovery was simply too much for us to deal with. Thankfully, the partners at the time made a decision to invest in some legal technology and really allowed us to do the work of a law firm 3 times our size in much less experience. To make a very long story short, we were basically able to not only find the evidence that we were looking for, we were able to get over motion for summary judgment and then take the case to trial, which was a fantastic experience for our clients. At that point in time, after the case had been resolved, I sort of saw the writing on the wall, as it were, and decided that I really wanted to dedicate myself and push the idea of legal technology for lawyers, having personally firsthand experience with how powerful technology could really be, not to replace a lawyer, but to really give lawyers as well as law firms a much, much larger impact in their everyday work. So that's just my personal story. This is not a actual picture of me, just to be sure. So the takeaway here is that the perks for legal technology and for transactional lawyers are vast today. Technology, of course, is racing forward and really providing lawyers, especially in transaction practices, benefits that most lawyers couldn't even imagine 50, less 100 years ago. Those perks are really, and those benefits are really twofold. The first is increased efficiency. And what we mean here is really better work product and less low value work, what some people sometimes refer to as practicing at the top of your license. What that really also means is it translates into reduced work hours. If you are an in-house lawyer, that's of course allowing you to really minimize your day. If you are an outside counsel and handling deals, you are able to also have a little bit more predictability within your work hours, because the technology is really allowing you to do some of the heavy lifting that tends to be not only low value work, but incredibly tedious and incredibly voluminous at the same time. It also leads to increased drafting efficiency. So within the context of actually drafting contracts, documents, and transactions, you will find an efficiency or an updated efficiency whenever it comes to that drafting process. And finally, increased work product delivery. And this gets into what we were speaking about before about a better client experience. Again, to make the point, clients today are really looking to really have much more of a seamless experience than ever before. They're looking to have things delivered quicker. And as clients increasingly understand the power of technology, those expectations will continue to rise. On the other end, there's better advocacy, which is deliver more in less time. What we're going to go over, these categories for legal tech transactions, transaction technology specifically, will really allow you to do a couple things. The first will understand more of your transaction. Go deeper into your deal by really seeing and making sure that you are seeing all the contracts, all the relevant documents that might be necessary, and able to really go through them and sift through them very, very quickly. The second is orchestrate better deals. This again gets to this idea of when you reduce the actual low value work or the busy work or any other work that might not allow you to practice at the top of your license, you become more of an orchestrator of deals and alleviate yourself from some of the day-to-day or nuance that might bog you down. And then finally, again, increase client satisfaction. And this is just another way of saying that the client will know that the transaction is being delivered in a sound way, as well as with the help of all of the tools that are available today. So let's get into what these legal tech transaction tools actually are. So we're going to go over. I think that's 5. Actually, it's 6. I missed one here, and those are drafting, document creation, contract negotiation, contract signing, after signing, and contract management. And then a surprise one, a 6th one, which is really kind of the future of contracting, or at least what many would say is kind of the future of contracting. And we're going to get a little bit into blockchain technology and smart contracts, just as a preview into the future. A big disclaimer here, which is all the tools are usable within New Zealand. These tools are jurisdictionally agnostic. They can be used across almost any practice area, and they really can be used all the way at the top, as well as by a senior associate and everyone in between. They typically just need training and a change in your workflow, but they are jurisdictionally agnostic and they can be used globally. Okay, so let's kick off with drafting. Drafting, of course, and we're going to start from sort of the beginning of, let's say, a transaction and go through the average contract life cycle. Of course, there's more involved in transactional law practice, but for the sake of time and just for a comprehensive presentation today, I chose to sort of move it along a contract life cycle. So let's start with drafting. Of course, a common practice within most transactional lawyers' workflow. Drafting tools really help lawyers with reducing errors in bespoke contracts drafting. So this is really where high stakes, very bespoke contracts are getting created, really with a lawyer pen on paper. Generally, these tools, however, one of the benefits of these tools and a lot of drafting tools is that they are available as plugins within Microsoft Word. The way that you can typically get to them is searching the Microsoft plugin store. Many of them are free, and as I mentioned before, most of them are jurisdictionally agnostic. Now, one tool that I wanted to bring up today was Definely. So Definely is based out of the UK, but again, available almost in every single jurisdiction around the world. And Definely is one of those free contract drafting tools that really sits within Microsoft Word. And the problem that it solves is really the idea of finding and maintaining good context within your contracts. And what do I mean by that? Basically, ensuring that you understand the definitions as well as the references that are being referenced within that contract. To put it sort of simply, it really minimizes the idea of using Control F, which is of course Control Find, to always be going back to the definitional section or the reference section within any of your contracts. The way that this works is that it creates a slide-in tool next to your drafter and really allows you to simply click into any term and very quickly see that draft and the definition of this draft. This is an incredible tool, but an incredibly simple tool. And all it really takes to get started is simply downloading it and putting it and adding it to your Microsoft Word. It's available to start for free, and you can simply go to Definely or search it to find it. So the tip here, the takeaway here, and why I brought up Definely specifically in the context of drafting is that technology can really reduce the switching cost involved in drafting. It can really allow you to stay within the environment of what you are reading at any point in time and really keep you in your workflow so that you're not breaking your concentration trying to go back and forth within the document, which of course that time in between aggregated over a very long period of time can really add unnecessary amount of hours to your drafting experience. So this is the first tip, which is think of technology in the context of drafting as helping you stay within context and not having to go back and forth and constantly be searching, going back and going to the previous page or going to another document. It really allows you to stay within the document and still in the context. And this is a great example, Definely. Let's go next to word rake. We're still talking about drafting specifically, and we're really still talking about keeping you within context and minimizing the time that it takes you to draft some of these documents. WordRake is an editor designed and trained specifically for professional services that works again within both Microsoft Outlook as well as Microsoft Word. Very simply, it is like spell check but specifically designed to minimize the verbiage and make your writing more clear as you're actually within the document. And the way that it does that is it is basically trained on professional type languages. What it does is as you are writing, it will review writing for verbiage and clarity, and it is specifically trained for those professionals, or I believe you can actually train it based on your own contracts. Tip and the takeaway here for this type of tool is really that you don't have to waste so much time editing your own writing. If you were like me, whenever I was practicing, you would go over again and again and again. And so much of the editing time tended to be getting to clarification or trying to make the point in a clear way, right? Versus the actual substance. WordRake was designed specifically for that, to minimize that time for lawyers or anybody who is drafting with an eye specifically on professional services pointedly. Okay, so let's that's just two examples of drafting. And again, the idea is there's a lot of context switching and a lot of lost time that can be clawed back for transactional lawyers within the drafting experience with some simple plugins that sit actually within your Word document. Most of these are either free to use with a upsell, or some of them are free trial that you can try and use them specifically. Okay, so let's move forward a little bit. So we're leaving the world of drafting and we're leaving the world of bespoke drafting and bespoke contracts, and we're entering the world of high volume automation and document automation. This might be lots of NDAs. This might be lots of a variety of different business contracts that either an in-house team or perhaps a legal team might need to prepare for a specific transaction, whereby those documents simply need a variety of different variables changed out. So this is a complete different side of bespoke one-to-one drafting. This is high volume document automation. Document automation basically helps a lawyer draft documents faster and more consistently. And there are two types of document automation, or two types of systems in which document automation leverages. The first is a question and answer system, whereby basically a user answers a series of questions and the system inserts the answers into a template, creating a more complete document ready for signature. Maybe you've used these before, whereby you are asked a series of questions in a separate screen and then the document is produced. The second is a clause-based document assembly. Effectively, a clause base will be created for you. At times, this has been created for you previous to creating these documents, or you are basically selecting these clauses in the moment. By selecting these clauses, the user then builds the document. Think of Legos, sort of stacking the Legos on top of one another if you've ever played Legos before. These two systems are really the prevailing way that document automation functions today in the two systems that are used within document automation to really accelerate that high volume work that tends to be prevalent in certain type of deals. So the tool that I want to use as an example here is Avoca. Avoca is a document automation and also a contract review, but we'll focus on the drafting documents and document automation based out of the UK. Again, it is completely jurisdictionally agnostic and can be used across the world. Avoca uses the QA type form fills, and it is free to start for 14 days. And Avoca is unique in that the experience in which you will answer questions is highly scalable and highly logic-based. And so what we mean is there is a deep automation that can basically be used within the system, a lot of if then statements. So if this, then if not this, then that. And it really takes this question and answer type form to a level of sort of gamification that really allows you to sit and do high volume contracts in an environment that doesn't feel like you're drafting in Word. It sort of abstracts away that Word document while still producing a highly accurate document for yourself. So this is the tip for this is just an example, but this is the tip for document automation that I want you to take away. And when you go to look at document automation solutions, if you choose to use them, and there are some document automation systems that also sit within Microsoft Word. However, those systems tend to be more clause-based, and they also don't create a new environment for you that allows you to abstract away a lot of the verbiage and the words and create a simpler environment for you. But this is the tip for the day, which is contract drafting can really be gamified to reduce error and increase accuracy. If you go back 10, 15, 20 years ago, of course, you had to rely on yourself to make sure that you were catching every single term that was going to be that needed to be changed. And so if you didn't change one term from a year to 2 years, of course, that could have a monstrous upset for both the client as well as for the contract itself. Avoca and document automation specifically minimizes that chance of reducing error while also increasing accuracy as well as increasing speed. And that's what the document automation tools really get to. Okay. So we're going to continue our story, and we're going to move from drafting into document automation and now into contract negotiation. So you have either drafted your contract or you have generated your contract, depending on whether or not it's highly bespoke or whether or not it's high volume and needs to be done quickly. And now you're in the contract negotiation phase with opposing counsel. So what's the core of contract negotiation here? Contract negotiation software is used for pre-execution of contract reviews, helping lawyers with review of third-party documents and negotiations. The flow of these tools tends to involve software that analyzes the contract and compares it against models or playbooks to ensure consistency, as well as highlight deviations from the model and suggest alternatives. So that was a lot of words, but I wanted to make sure that that was comprehensive. But to bring that down and just put it in plain English, basically contract negotiation tools really do two core things. They will help you read a document from opposing counsel, and then they will compare that document against your best playbooks. And one of the really big benefits, I think, that most people, when they speak about contract negotiation, something that they come back to again and again and again, is the idea that it not only reads what is there, it also reads what isn't there. And of course, I think we've all had days where we might not remember something. Either your partner has asked you to get something for them from the supermarket, and you just forget because it hasn't been written down. Of course, the same thing can happen in contract negotiation. It just tends to be that we focus on what is actually in the contract, and what tends to be outside the contract can be a little bit harder for us all to basically capture and catch. But contract negotiation, because it uses and compares against playbooks, can really allow you to make sure that you are capturing not only what is there and using the best language, but also capturing and reviewing what hasn't been. The example that I want to bring up here is a company called Legal Sifter. Legal Sifter is based out of the United States, but again, is industry agnostic and jurisdictionally agnostic. And one of its great benefits is that it it really is able to be trained using artificial intelligence against your best contracts. So assuming your law firm or your in-house department has a series of contracts, Legal Sifter and the way that their artificial intelligence works can really be trained on your best practices and in the process create the model as well as the playbook on which these contracts are compared. So just to talk specifically about Legal Sifter, what Legal Sifter does is it reads your contracts for what's there and what's not there, and it can fully customize your contract playbook. This really allows you to, it does two things. So the first is it can create your playbook, and then it can make sure that you are using your playbook at any point and period of time in all of your contract drafting. Legal Sifter as an environment, you do have to go into that environment, but the software actually has a built-in word editor within it. So you can actually be editing and drafting a contract actually within the software itself. And the environment is exactly like Microsoft Word. And from there, you can, of course, export that contract, send it forward, but we're going to get into that next step. So the takeaway here for contract review is that technology can really be a second pair of eyes for you, available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It can really minimize that chance that you have forgotten to insert an important clause into a transaction that is best practices for your company or for your client, as well as compare what has been produced by, let's say, a third party, compare that against your own playbooks, which have already been trained for you and available for you. And in this way, contract negotiation really starts to become a process whereby you're really more comparing and working with the technology than trying to do it yourself. And so true to its name, Legal Sifter claims to be a combined intelligence solution that really does make contracts easier. Okay, so we are about halfway done, and we're about halfway through the actual life cycle of, let's say, a typical contract or parts of a contract. So we were in drafting, we moved into document automation, and we just finished with contract negotiation. We're now into signing. The parties have agreed. You've perhaps used the technology product to make sure that all of your best practices have been included. And now it's time to actually sign those contracts and in a way index them for either your client or for your company. Of course, today e-signing and e-signatures are pretty ubiquitous, but I wanted to sort of include it here because it's part of the story. And you would be remiss, and I wanted to draw in a few. I would be remiss if I wasn't including it. And I wanted to sort of point to a few different aspects that I think are important with signing. So e-signatures, just for anybody who's not aware, e-signatures or electronic signatures are a legally binding way to basically sign electronic documents as opposed to wet ink signatures. The category also includes online notation software. So today there's also online notaries that are available. And of course, this is on a jurisdictional basis. But the benefits to e-signature are not only that the experience for signators really is more of a digital experience that is based in today's either email environment or what have you. The benefits also include faster agreeing, action tracking. So a lot of these e-signature platforms, you are able to see when documents have been opened up, when they have been read. There's also a trail log, which is good for, it's just data as to the state of that signing. There's also reporting features, and automation reminders. And depending on where you're at and how much you like to use these platforms, specifically signing platforms, you can really start to really capture an entire data stream of what is going on with all of your contracts at any point in period in time. And I think just to put a fine point on it, getting to the end and getting something signed and keeping your client updated on the state of anything and the state of signature at any point in time, of course, elevates that client experience, which is one of the real big tenets of these transactional type legal tech tools, which is delivering a higher client experience for your clients and providing them with an experience that is a little bit more seamless for them. So again, the benefits: faster green, action tracking, reporting, as well as automation reminders, getting people. So instead of writing that email, the system, of course, will generate a reminder for you and a notification for you. I'm just going to go ahead and name the most obvious one in the world, which is DocuSign. DocuSign is free to start and free to use. It is, at this point in time, I think over 1 million different people, 1 billion different users use DocuSign, and it really has global usage. But I think the tip for here, and tip specifically within signing, is that putting things in a digital environment not only elevates the client experience, and clients like things to be easy and low friction, but it also provides tracking and data for you to really know what is the state of your agreement in that ever so important last part, which is really signing there. Okay. So we're making pretty good time. I have just two more main segments here. So we're going to be finishing in the next, let's say, 10 minutes or so. And let's move into after signing. So we've signed the contract, we've drafted it, we've signed it, we've reviewed it, and now we're moving into after signing. And this is really where contract lifecycle management comes into play. For those of you who keep abreast of things like legal technology and specifically legal technology investment around the world, contract lifecycle management is basically today's large investment vehicle with really most companies now on the in-house side are investing in a contract lifecycle management system, and we are seeing very large investment rounds happening all around the world in legal tech, specifically within the contract lifecycle management space. What is contract lifecycle management? It is the storage, calendaring, and reminder system for contracts. So you get the contract all the way to the end, it is signed, but of course there's a next part of that contract, which is what is the state of that contract? When does it expire? When are the renewals? What, if any, actions need to be taken as part of that? This is where contract lifecycle management and managing those contracts really comes into play here. So two other points. A contract management system really stores and summarizes the contracts and creates reminders for time-sensitive dates in the contract. So if you are an in-house lawyer, of course, you probably have voluminous numbers of contracts and all need to be managed in some ways, of course. But also we see increasingly law firms using contract lifecycle management to really manage all of the contracts for their clients, and again, get to this higher client experience, ensuring that they can almost manage the state of their clients' contracts at any point in time, allowing them to really extend their value to clients both before the contract as well as after the contract. Just for an example that hopefully clarifies and colors this, an example would be a loan agreement that may be linked to an accounting system that measures whether or not certain thresholds in a loan agreement are breached. So this is an example of how these contract lifecycle management systems really talk to different accounting systems and start to add some very interesting automation and some very interesting notifications. Again, we are seeing this, that it's very prevalent for in-house clients to be using these type of systems to just basically manage business as usual. But also we are seeing law firms really managing their clients' entire contract portfolio for them. And a large part of that is due to the ability of contract lifecycle management systems to give them access into these contracts specifically. So one contract CLM that I'm going to mention is Contract Eagle. Contract Eagle is a New Zealand-based CLM. And Contract Eagle has most of the features that you would expect out of a contract management system. It really, including experience, contract review, event reminders, and a variety of other different tools that are sort of part in. So Contract Eagle represents a very robust CLM system, complete with even document automation software built into this. So it can do the back ends, but it can also do the front end. So with CLM, the tip that I want to leave everybody with is that technology can make contracts not just this sort of dead piece of paper. It can really make contracts smart and automated, while also providing you with increased access, if you're a law firm, increase access into your client's contract portfolio and helping them manage that, as well as on the in-house side, really making you much more abreast of what is the state of any of your contracts at any point and period of time. So CLM is sort of the last bucket here, post-signing, that really is probably key for transactional lawyers today, regardless of in-house or law firms. So that gets me to the sixth topic that I wanted to talk about, and it's a little bit of an outsider here. And today, of course, it's everybody's, or at least a very large trend and an incredibly new technology, which is smart contracts. So if you follow the cryptocurrency space, you will probably know what smart contracts are. And I won't go into it because it will probably be a little bit too much, but smart contracts really represent a paradigm shift in the way that contracts are really conceived of and how they are executed. Smart contracts, in some very large sense, really removes, just like blockchain technology does, really removes much of the middle person, the middle entity within a lot of these contracting, and really makes using code, really makes contracts self-executing. And I wanted to bring this up because I do think it's relevant for the legal industry to not only understand smart contracts, not only just as a technology layer, which it is, but also as a industry and as a growing place of work. So I'm going to get into that, but just for those who are unaware of how smart contracts, one very simple example is a smart insurance product contract. The way that this would work is a contract would be written on a smart contract would be written, which is a self-executing contract. It can be hosted on the blockchain or not. And that smart contract will stipulate, let's say in the case of an insurance agreement, will stipulate all of the aspects of an insurance agreement. For example, let's say crop insurance against bad weather. Everything gets coded. All of the if-and statements get coded into the smart contract, and the smart contract will automatically pay out if, let's say, rainfall amounts drop below a certain threshold level. So again, you can see how this contract really, once it is created, can really self-execute in a specific way effectively by tying into different data sources. In this case, let's say a rainfall metric. We won't go into anything more. I think smart contracts are a interesting new technology that is really developing. But one of the benefits and why it might grow very quickly is its ability to do a couple things, which is the industrial Internet of Things, of course, everything from Everything from shipping containers all the way to your home appliances will fairly soon be attached to an Internet of Things. And as well as blockchains. And when you combine blockchains with smart contracts, you have everybody's favorite trend today, which are, of course, NFTs. Most of you have probably seen something about NFTs, but this is what happens when smart contracts are basically put on the blockchain specifically. I won't go into any more because I am not an expert at all in this. I just wanted to bring this up. And the reason is that I think it's relevant for lawyers is because smart contracts are really creating new legal demand for legal services specifically on both the creation side as well as the defense of contracts for transactional lawyers alike. So this really represents a new paradigm, a new place for lawyers, and a new branch of work specifically. There's lots of very interesting content about this. I just brought up one, that's a little bit over the top, but still gets to, it's a 3-minute video that really sort of explains from a legal perspective and from a lawyer's perspective, some of the problems, and he gets into how he works with clients both on the NFT side. So if you're interested in that, just check out that video, but there's various on YouTube, basically. So that really, I think, brings us to the end here. And I know that that was a lot. I'm certainly tired myself, but we're going to go ahead and summarize this, and hopefully this sort of paints it all together. So let's put ourselves as a transactional lawyer today, and we are in a normal workflow, in a normal day. We might start, let's say, because now we know that drafting tools are available, we might start to use a drafting tool like WordRake that specifically helps us streamline our writing and make it a little bit tighter as we're sitting drafting a bespoke contract. We might also have installed something like Definedly to help us with this legal drafting, to really make sure that we stay in context and are not switching back and forth, always trying to find references or always trying to find definitions. We're able to stay actually within the contract and keep things flowing. It's really that switching cost that not only costs a lot of time, but also is very mentally draining for most people to constantly be going back and forth between and dropping out of context. Later in the day, we might go to, and we might be creating large number of documents, or we might be overseeing the production of large number of documents. And we might use the document automation system that we've brought in to help us. And let's say we're negotiating or drafting large partnership agreements. We'll use this document automation to make sure that we are capturing and changing all of the relevant details within that contract, not letting it to chance. The software will help you make sure that you are changing those, while also ensuring that you're doing it in a gamified type environment that is really pleasurable, where you're just simply answering and asking and answering questions within this context. A little bit later, you receive a document from opposing counsel. And opposing counsel has really put in a lot of different red lines and even included some new clauses. You use Legal Sifter to really review that contract for you as you're going through that contract, ensuring that not only are you able to compare the proposed language against your own proposed language, reducing the time of going back and finding previous clauses from previous contracts, but it's all there for you to basically draw upon. Not only that, Legal Sifter is really helping you make sure that you are including all of your own best clauses within that contract, excuse me. Finally, you and opposing counsel might agree on that contract, and now it's time to sign that contract and send it off to each of the counterparties for signature. And you might use DocuSign to do that. And DocuSign would really allow you to not only track and send out in a seamless way this contract, but also track it and send notifications to both parties to make sure that that contract is signed in the most efficient manner possible. And finally, you're done with the contract. It is signed. You have brought the transaction home. It's now time to manage that contract and make sure that you are keeping up to date with any renewals, any other add-ons or anything specifically that needs to be managed within the contract. And you might use Contract Eagle to really store those contracts. And finally, assuming that you want to completely change practice and go into a completely different direction, you might become a lawyer and get into the blockchain space and either help defend or help manage new type of smart contracts, writing these smart contracts themselves, or defending them and advising clients who want to who have had any problems with this NFT space or more in general the entire crypto space in general. So that's it, I think. But the ultimate, to full circle all the way back to where we started, ultimately, the idea here is to not only deliver a high client experience, but it's also about reducing any of the low value work or context switching or any of the other in-between work that is notorious whenever you're managing a large number of transactions and contracts, ultimately leaving you with more time to do whatever it is that you want to do, as it were. So that's it. Thank you so much, and happy to take any questions with anybody who needs anything. But yeah, thank you so very much, everybody.
Thanks, Ben, for your time in putting together this webinar. We have a couple of questions that people have asked. To start with, what's your recommendation for a drag and drop clause bank, or is there a software we can use for that? Or you can also put in your own clauses and then you can drag and drop.
Yeah, there are so many. I'm going to give probably a blanket answer, which is today, I think that the state of legal tech directories, which really allow you to select what is the best software for you, are in a fantastic place. And I would recommend highly that everybody go to legaltechnologyhub.com. Legal Technology Hub is really one of the best directories for legal tech tools. It is really going to allow you to not only filter down by your practice area, but also by your country, and also by your price range or anything else. And I think that tool is really going to, and specifically to document automation, it's going to be able to allow you to separate out clause versus question and answer. So Legal Technology Hub, I think, is a good place to start, and you can get those answers very, very quickly.
Great, thank you. The other question I have is, how is WordRake different from Grammarly?
Yes, great question. I believe, without speaking on behalf of WordRake, I believe that the big distinction here is that it has been trained on professional services specifically, while Grammarly is slightly more based on a consumer type. But they are very similar. I have to admit that they're very similar, yes.
Is WordRake, though, a legal based, or is it just for more general use?
It's a professional service based, and it started with legal specifically and has just now expanded. So it has its core is basically for legal writing specifically.
And they'll be different from Briefcatch, right? That we spoke about last time.
Yes, it will be different than Briefcatch. This is more on a transactional versus a litigation, and this is much more focused on clarity of writing rather than Briefcatch, which is much more focused on precedent, basically within the writing.
Sure. Then the other question we have is, does Legal Shifter take into account certain words that are missing or the entire sentences?
Could you say that again? You cut out just a little bit.
Does Legal Shifter take into account certain words that are missing or the entire sentences?
Yes, great question. I believe that is clause-based. You would have to go into this a little bit deeper. It is clause-based because the training is based on, let's say, to use a very simple example, jurisdictional clauses or clause majeure clauses, or so it is very clause-based effectively. But from what I understand, and you would have to definitely go into the company. It can be trained on to find any sentence specifically. It would just need to be trained to find that. But from what I believe, the core of it is basically clause based, and that's how it at least presents itself.
Okay, great. One of the other questions is, I think it's IP based basically. So does the clauses documents, do the clauses in the documents I draft through Legal Shifter then become part of their playbook and available to others? So I think it's an IP thing. Yes. People must be wanting to kind of hold on to their own clauses, right?
Yes. Or, you know, it's funny because I actually see that. I'd love for some clarification, whoever wrote that. That's a very good question. I can speak to, I can't answer that question if it's an IP thing. But I can answer this, which is within your own firm, if you draft up something, you can then make it part of the actual playbook and the actual model. So you're actually training the system once you are drafting novel clauses, and then it can be extracted out to make sure that that is included in the next round of drafting. I can't answer, unfortunately, specifically the IP part of it and how you can limit that. That part I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah, and I'll probably highly recommend that people probably look at the terms and conditions as we always do to make sure that it's the case and not being used. The other question we have is cost of services. So a lot of people are asking for the cost. And I think you've spoken about this already, that some are for free trials and others are for freemium use. But I guess if you go onto the websites, you'll be able to look at the prices itself. It's not like that they will be hiding their prices for SaaS-based business.
No, in the software world today, there's a very big push toward open prices. I can speak as somebody who I guess does this every single day, that in general, in US dollars, prices for individual users will tend to go from for drafting type tools, $7 to $10 for those type of tools. But all the way to an end-to-end platform like a CLM might be closer to $40 to $50 for the user. And the idea here is just how much technology and how much features is basically built into these features. The simpler the feature, the cheaper it tends to be. But yes, I mean, and many of them have freemium offers, which is just free and premium sort of smashed in together.
Great. And last two questions was, so people are asking if we can provide the slide or the list of companies. We've already messaged saying that this webinar will be available for everyone to watch it at a later stage. But is it possible to share your slides through the link?
Yes, absolutely. I can share a link to the slides for everybody, and I can send that to Anantesh basically after, if that's helpful for everybody.
Yeah, that'll be great if you could do that.
Wonderful.
And then the last comment is, what's your views about, you might not have caught on to this right now, but Soulbound, that the Ethereum founder has just come out with this new white paper talking about what's going to happen. I think that's quite an interesting development in the area, which is going to help with accreditation, making sure, for example, this CPD points that could make sure that if you are getting a CPD point, and it ensures that the person was in the event throughout the event, and then gives a point for that.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Honestly, I hadn't followed that specifically, but certainly this space is incredible in terms of its momentum and movement. It's I think it really has a lot of new surface areas specifically for lawyers on both the drafting side as well as more of the technology side. So it's very interesting.
Great. Thank you for your time today, and thank you everyone for attending this webinar. If you have any questions, feel free to email us, and in due course, you'll be sent a link for a feedback form to kind of provide us feedback with what you thought about the webinar and whether you need more information. And have a great day.
Yes, thank you, everybody. It was great being with you today. Have a great rest of the day. And if anybody needs to ask me any questions, I am on LinkedIn. That is the easiest. I would love to connect with all of you. And I do have ongoing content about legal technology. So please go ahead and follow me. And yeah, thank you so much. Definitely check everything out. Take care, everybody.
Great. Thanks a lot. Cheers.
Cheers. Bye.